The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to my colleague. There are indeed some good news items in the budget, and enjoyable hearing from your regional perspective. What were the highlights for you? I've got to say that I'd really hoped on the gender equality and removing barriers to women in the workplace that we would see some new funding for new childcare spaces. So when I look at what the asks were from the NGO community, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, which gathers together all the best NGO advice on the budget, their recommendation was in 2018-19 commit $1 billion, this is new money, to be transferred to the provinces, territories, Indigenous communities to begin building that comprehensive childcare system, new spaces. And that should grow by $1 billion per year until it reaches the established international benchmark of 1% of GDP. Canadian Labour Congress made the same ask. Every witness we've had at Status of Women Committee has said the #1 thing you can do to remove barriers to women's economic justice and women entering the workforce is to make new childcare spaces. And the Canada Child Benefit doesn't help women if there aren't those new spaces to spend the money in. So knowing my colleague's commitment to gender equality and women in the workplace, does he share my deep concern that this budget did not put its money where its mouth is so far as gender equality and childcare?
The honourable member for Kingston and the Isles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My wife called me this morning, Mr. Speaker, and told me that she just wrote the daycare check for March, and she told me what it was worth. And I definitely share in the concern that there's a lot more that we can do. We can always do more. What this budget is doing is starting to make progress on one area. Am I looking forward to working with my colleague across the way in the future on what more we can do? Absolutely. But we also have to be realistic about where we are and the demands. I mean, let's not forget, with all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Speaker, that her party promised a whole lot of stuff and to balance the budget too. So we have to be respectful of the fact that we can take off as much as we can as we go, and we have to continue to work on other things. So I'm looking forward to working with her on that as we move into future budgets, so that we can continue to make that entrance for women into the workforce and continuing in the workforce even easier.